Okay, so tonight we'll be doing something a bit different than we've done in the past, which is to fund a mission, which will transpire at the end of the program. So you'll learn a little more about that as we go along. All right, I'm often asked how I got here. My journey to RAFT began many years ago, before I'd heard of RAFT, and long before I understood I'd actually started a journey. I was assigned as a Peace Corps volunteer in Micronesia during the early 90s. I lived on the island of Pohnpei. I was a high school teacher there. One of my early observations was how little was wasted in Pohnpei. Food, supplies, clothing, etc. The pigs ate what the people didn't eat. The dogs ate what the pigs didn't eat. Very little was thrown away. And even a common piece of what we consider garbage, like a tin can, was often converted into something useful or interesting. For example, I remember being struck by a simple toy that I saw in one of the villages where a tin can and a couple of bottle caps and some string had been converted into a really cool toy for a little boy. And it was so simple and yet so ingenious at the same time. And it made me think that this idea of nothing wasted also provided hours and hours of entertainment. And nothing wasted is ultimately what RAFT is about. We pride ourselves on living the mantra, reduce, reuse, and upcycle. Our focus is on hands-on education, which engages teachers and students and builds comprehension. For those who haven't seen this space in its usual form, this room is usually full of all sorts of material, much of which would have been destined for landfill, that becomes the tools for STEM learning and for arts education, and engages kids in new and exciting ways. Hey, speaking of material donations, I want to make the point that RAFT just achieved a very important milestone. Days ago, we received a donation that put us over the mark of 3 million cubic feet of materials donated to date. All right. I know what you're thinking. You're like, what? How much is that? I don't know what that is. Because I was asking the same question. But to visualize, for those who are visual learners out there, visualize 3 million cubic, imagine a freight train loaded with 1,000 giant cargo containers stacked too high. The train would be 6 miles long and take 14 minutes to go past. All right, but now I know there's some math people out there that are like, how fast is that train going? Right? I know that's what you're thinking. So reaching this volume of materials serves as a reminder of RAFT's mission to support educators as well as the environment. Those are the two things that I think we must always remember. This year's theme, which is to think outside the box, is our daily MO at RAFT. We know how challenging it can be for educators to teach concepts in innovative and in cost-effective ways. That's why we exist, to help them leverage affordable materials in new and unexpected ways and engage and inspire students. And that's what the goal is, to engage and inspire students. Engaged students are more excited about learning and are usually more willing to take risks. Failure is an essential ingredient of success. As Edison said, I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work. It would help all of us to embrace this kind of thinking. It also exemplifies what businesses need in the 21st century workforce. It all starts with great teaching, though. Every child deserves a great teacher. It shouldn't depend on geography, demographics, or how much money you have. It is a universal need, which our keynote speaker, Ramji, will be talking about as well. It's universal, but it starts here. RAFT is a resource for all educators, public, private, preschool, after school, homeschool. And this space, and our space in Redwood City, will always be resources for ideas, for materials, for activity kits, for the thousands of our members. But we also know the opportunity gaps are wider in areas with high populations of low-income students. So our strategy over the next 3 years will be to support many more teachers in the areas where the students need us the most. Every student should experience great teaching. And our goal is to help teachers get the skills and materials they need to be the most effective. I mean, if you think about where we are in the heart of Silicon Valley here. We are surrounded by global companies, many of which are represented here in this room. Innovation, tremendous wealth. Yet RAFT is also surrounded by some of the highest need schools and districts in the Bay Area. Specifically, there are 6 neighboring districts with close to 30,000 students who qualify for free and reduced lunches. Near our office in Redwood City, there's another 20,000 students who qualify. Those students deserve great teaching, and we have what it needs to provide support for them. We have a plan, and I hope you will help financially support part of that plan tonight. First, our goal is to significantly increase the number of educators we train over the next year in our 6 neighboring districts, as well as the highest need districts in San Mateo County. The following year, our goal is to triple the number of educators trained in our target areas, include more districts, and benefit over 80,000 students. Finally, our goal is to expand our support beyond the Bay Area, to promote strong teaching practices where teachers and students have the most to gain. There are many opportunities for us to make a difference, a positive difference, for both teaching and learning. It starts right here, but there are no boundaries or limitations to where our support is needed. To think big, though, we have to think and walk outside the box. With your help, we can do it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Granger. It's really interesting to me. Granger was the executive director of Peninsula Bridge, and I was a student of Peninsula Bridge, and I knew Granger. Such a visionary person. And I owe a lot of my eagerness to succeed because of that program. And it's so interesting because Granger's always there. He's supporting us. He supported me as a student, and now he's supporting me as an educator, which eventually supports students as well. So can we please, round of applause for Granger. Okay, let's get competitive. So now it's your time to think out of this box with a team challenge. And before we get started, I think it's really important for me to set some procedures because as my students, we need to know those procedures. So every time that when I say go, you're gonna say, but not before. Can we try it? When I say go, I think we could do that a little bit faster. When I say go, excellent. Here is your challenge. You will work with your team to create a structure with your table group. Your job is to bring one styrofoam ball to the other of the table. You can use anything provided in your centerpiece. And if you are that student, yes, you can use the box. Your structure must begin 2 inches from the start and no more than 2 inches from the end. You will have 15 minutes, and you're gonna yell RAFT when you're done. However, there are a few constraints. You cannot push the styrofoam ball, you cannot blow on the styrofoam ball, and you cannot guide it manually. The ball needs to go by itself once it is released. You have 15 minutes. Excellent. Please continue to enjoy your meal, but I would like to bring back to the stage Granger Marburg, CEO of RAFT, to present the Robert Brownlee Teacher of the Year Award.
Okay, so the Brownlee Teacher of the Year Award is for a TK-12 science teacher who has shown excellence in teaching. Our Teacher of the Year began as an engineer, started her family, and then began teaching science at her kids' school. She has now been teaching for over 20 years, and we are happy to honor her. Please draw your attention to the screen so you can see why Michelle Stever is an example of excellence in teaching.
There's a magic to teaching that isn't in engineering. And so when you do engineering, you do a project and you finish it and it works or it doesn't work, or you do a failure investigation. Teaching is so iterative, but you get to see the joy end of it. The end of it is a people piece. It's not a technical, oh look, the design worked and we can ship it now. Now it's a piece with kids, and it's a piece where a kid will go, wow, that worked, or is this really what physics is like? And you think, yeah, it is. So the fun has to have content pauses in it. So I teach by commercial. They're prime time, their activities are prime time. My content gets inserted into that prime time by commercial pieces when they need it. You know, I have 167 kids on my roster. When you go out to get stuff for 167 kids, that's a little pricey, and the school budgets frown on that. But you know, you can get 167 kids worth of stuff at RAFT. RAFT has had, over the last few years, has done some nice job of stocking some basic things that we need to be replaced and not order out of a catalog. So it kind of becomes our go-to catalog because we know it's there. You know, a RAFT gift certificate is great because they can make $10 go to $50 very easily. They learn so much better when they're doing things. They learn so much better when they're touching something or seeing it happen or having those questions. They learn better when I don't give them answers, when they create the answers. And so I create the questions, they create the answers, and they understand and they uncover the magic pieces, the magic content pieces on their own, and they really feel, they own their learning that way. They have no idea how carefully manipulated and orchestrated it is, but that's the secret. If you can orchestrate it, then they own it, and when they own it, it's theirs and it stays. But the very best days of teaching are the times when I can step back and let the learning happen, and I don't have to be, I really don't have to be present to win because I already won.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Stever. So this is the RAFT version of a trophy or award. And by the way, for the last number of years, we gave a plaque, and we thought, why? We've got all this great stuff right here at RAFT. So this is it, engineered internally. Congratulations.
No, that's
Come here. They want to take a picture. All right.
I thought he was taking it away. We'll take that away. I am not a speaker, so I will keep this very short, and we all love short speeches, so it's thanks, RAFT. And I'm one of so many teachers that believe that students can do more if we ask them to. And so we ask them for we ask them to learn. We invite them to learn. We invite them to fail and fail grandly and recover so that they can become adults and know that that happens. When I got the decade thing, I've been teaching for a couple of decades, and it was wow. But decades everywhere from preschool through college, and seeing how it evolves, and it's a wonderful, magical process, and I'm one of so many of my colleagues that believe that kids can, and we need to give them more chance to be not fill in the blank. When they enter the school system, someone said once, they enter as a question mark because they're so excited, and if you teach little kids, you know how excited they get. And then you teach middle school, and you know how excited they can get. And high schoolers can get very excited as well. But we want them to enter the system as a question mark and leave as a question mark and an exclamation point, and not that period that stamps their diploma. So the RAFT is a wonderful place to put the questions back in. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Make sure you get a look of that as she's walking by. All right, so now we get to hear from our guest speaker, Ramji. And I want to say thank you first and foremost to Cisco, who introduced us to Ramji. And Cisco has been very generous with RAFT over the years and supports Ramji as well in India. And when he was here recently, or I guess it was actually last November, they said, why don't you go and check out RAFT? And so he came over and we had a great conversation, and it's led to Ramji being here again today to deliver some words of wisdom to you guys. So Ramji Raghavan spent years in international banking before embarking on a mission to reshape science education in India. Challenged to think beyond the creation of a single school, Ramji founded Agastya International Foundation and started bringing scientific thinking directly to his country's rural villages. In its 16th year, Agastya has trained 200,000 teachers and opened science centers and deployed mobile vans to reach 2 million children in India. We are grateful and we are honored, Ramji, to have you here tonight. Thank you. Ramji.
Thank you, Granger. Thank you. Can you hear me? Well, what can I say? I'm honored to be here today to share my experience of what I consider to be the transformative power of hands-on, out-of-the-box learning and thinking and doing. And I'm delighted because RAFT is such an extraordinary example, a living example of all of the things that I believe in, and a lot of people around the world believe in. An intense, hands-on, experiential, fun-loving place. And it was so evident in watching all of you perhaps go back to your childhood days. You know, everyone was like a kid. So my compliments to RAFT. Now, Agastya, as Granger was saying, touches 2 million children a year. We've got a 172-acre experiential campus in South India. We have 130 mobile science vans that go around villages in 18 states in India. And 2 years ago, we won the Google Global Impact Award for our lab on a motorcycle. We've got about 70 of those crisscrossing the countryside. But back in the late 1990s, I was living the life of a banker, the good life of a banker in London. And I remember reading a story about a boy in a village in India, in the Times of India. The cows in that village were all dying of some kind of inexplicable disease, except this one cow. The boy happened to observe this cow was eating from a particular pile of garbage. And being inquisitive, he went to investigate Now, what is this cow eating? Is there a clue to this? And I guess he studied the chemistry of the garbage, came up with a project to demonstrate that whatever it was that it was eating actually gave the cow an immunity against this disease. That led to him winning an Intel Science Prize, competing with the best and brightest kids in India from very well-endowed and well-heeled schools. I was really inspired, and it brought to mind a project that I was trying to give shape to, which was to build a school for creative leaders in the foothills of the Himalayas, kind of Shangri-La. Just imagine green meadows, apple orchards, gurgling streams, cool breeze, watching the snow-capped Himalayas. Kids like this kid would come out of that school and transform the world. So that was my dream. But I was caged. I was living in a golden cage. You know, the magnetic power of the cage and my own fear of diving into the unknown kept me from doing what I really wanted to do. So I continued going to work. And I should have been happy because the money was great. The money was extraordinary. This was before the crisis, of course, and when all bankers lost status. But at that time, it was a big deal to be a banker in London. The money was great. I should have been happy, but I was miserable. You know, I remember taking the train to work, the old Pink Floyd song, people from my generation, from the dark side of the moon. Hanging on in quiet desperation is the English way. Now, you can tell I can't sing, right? And I remember thinking, my God, have I become one of those desperate creatures, right? And I said, actually, I have. I have. There's no other way to describe my life at the time or existence. Now, I was fortunate. I had a very enlightened friend and mentor, very spiritual person. And we used to have these conversations walking through Regent's Park in London, talking about the meaning of life. And he knew me rather well, and one day he was dropping me off at home in Kensington, and he said, you know, Ramji, I know you're going through a lot of perturbance. You're worried about what you should do, giving up your job. Is this the right thing to do, and so on. So let me tell you a story that you told me about 15 years earlier. I said, what was that story? And he said, you know, it's a story about the mystic and philosopher J. Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti used to visit our school, which he founded, a boarding school in South India, and he would go on these solitary walks all by himself. And he was almost worshipped in that part of India. And one day he saw an old, frail old woman carrying a headload of firewood. Pretty heavy stuff, you still see it. And I'm always reminded of that story when I see it near our campus. And he insisted on going and carrying that headload of firewood for the woman, taking it all the way to her home. Now, anyone who had seen Krishnamurti would have known that he wasn't a particularly strong and, well-built person. So it must have been quite an effort. So I told Gopi, my friend, I remember that story. My mother read it out to me when I was a child. Correct. So he said, yeah, I told you. You told me the story. So then he asked me a question. He said, tell me, why did he help that woman? And I said, well, I think I know why he helped her, but I don't want to tell you because you'll say I'm speaking from here, not from here. So tell me, why did he? And he said, because he felt her pain. Now, I knew what was coming. I was really in a kind of emotional state then. And he leaned over and told me, the problem with you, old boy, is you don't feel the other person's pain. You've built this fortress of protection around your heart and your soul, and you've managed your career, and you think life is fantastic. But actually, it's an illusion. You're not living, you're just existing. You need to reach out. You need to be vulnerable, not invulnerable. And then you'll understand the meaning of life. And I remember walking back home like this, feeling miserable, right? My wife looked at me and said, now what's the matter with you? And I said, it was one of those deep conversations with Gopi. And anyway, it was an inciting moment in my life, and I said, do it. Just do it and forget about the consequences. This was late 1990s, 1998. India had exploded 6 nuclear devices. So I went back to India to do a brainstorming, and the former chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission came to the brainstorming, as did some educators and teachers and college students and school students. And I asked the question, what does it take to raise the level of an ocean? To raise the speed limit of creativity of a country? Or is that, a contradiction in terms? So we talked about, what makes you creative? What makes you innovative? What makes you a great problem solver? Is it something in your genes, or is it a skill that you can learn? And we looked at examples from science, the arts, the humanities, and so on, and said, look, creative people, innovative people, great problem solvers tend to observe a lot more than the average person does. They see things that others don't see. And why is that? Well, maybe it's because there's less bias in their thinking, so there's more room for more stimuli or whatever. They're very observant, keen observers of anything. The second thing is there's a process of awareness in the brain that allows thoughts to germinate and grow, right? Without sort of stifling them and putting them down. The third is they have the ability to synthesize, integrate, associate different strands of apparently unconnected information, connecting the dots, as it were. And then they have this ability to apply that to create something of value for society. So we said observation, awareness, association, and application are really the sorts of skills we're talking about, or qualities, when we talk about somebody being creative or innovative. And all of this is built on curiosity. You have to be curious to observe. You must want to find out, rather like that village kid in southern India. You have to have the urge and the desire to want to know why something happens. So we said, okay, the mission of our foundation, if we want to add true value in the Indian context, must be to spark curiosity, nurture creativity, and instill confidence. Because to be curious, you need to be motivated to be curious. And motivation depends a lot on at least 2 things. You have to believe that something is worth doing and that you can do it. And very often, it doesn't matter how smart you are or innately creative you might be, if you believe you can't do something, whether it was like an activity we did, and I believed I couldn't do it, by the way. So I was just watching Tadashi and the others put it together, because I take a lot of time to figure things out. And there was a clock here that suppressed my creativity. But anyway, the point is, motivation becomes very important. So we said curiosity, confidence, and self-belief. Finally, of course, humanity. Because anything we do, Granger and I were talking about the impact of the net and so on, technology. And anything you do, there's got to be a connection to the wider world. Not just to human beings, but to all things, actually. That's one of the beautiful things about hands-on learning. So we said, let that be the mission of the foundation. I was really excited. I'd quit my job. I felt liberated. And the first thing we did was to go and buy 172 acres of barren wasteland near Bangalore. That's all we could get. And I said, okay, we're going to build the Taj Mahal here. And it's going to become that thing that I couldn't do in the Himalayas, but hey, second best, we'll still do something here. That was the good news. It's a huge coup. Getting land like that in India, it's not like America or Canada, is very difficult. But very soon, the bad news happened, which is we ran out of money. I was living on my own capital. I wasn't prepared to spend it now on buildings with an uncertain future. So what do? We huddled. And somebody said, maybe we've got this backwards. Instead of thinking of this Taj Mahal that people would come to, children and teachers and all of that. Let's go out to the villages and reach out. Now, how? How about a mobile lab? So we said, interesting idea, called a friend who was a vice president in an auto company. He loaned us a second-hand vehicle. The atomic scientists got me a box of very low-cost science experiments made of coat hangers and pieces of string and, candlesticks and stuff like that people at RAFT, I'm sure, could really make some fantastic experiments in teaching kids from. It cost all of, at today's current exchange rate, about $9. You could do about 100, 200 experiments. And we had this guy, Balram, who was driving a tractor on campus. And I said, Balram, there's no more money for driving tractors, so you're going to be our first mobile lab teacher. And he was happy he wasn't losing his job. So he said, okay, but I'm an arts graduate. So I said, it doesn't matter, the scientists will train you. So they trained him, set him loose in the villages. A few weeks went by, and I asked Balram, hey, how's it going, Balram? And he said, fantastic. The kids love it. At first, they would run away thinking I was a missionary, right? But then, when I pulled the box out with the experiments, they got really curious, like all of you did, and like I did when I saw this box. But what's in it? And they came flocking back, and it was fantastic, engaging, participative. And by the way, I didn't realize how much fun it could be to be a teacher. I really love it. So I said, good, continue doing it until I come up with a better idea and or more money. Now, the mobile lab, so I'd quit my job, all of this, 170 acres of barren wasteland, and one solitary second-hand vehicle running through the villages. And I was wondering what's going to happen next, and somebody said, let's do a science fair. We've got to be busy. We've got to engage with the community. So we said, all right, and the model was we would train like 100 school teachers to teach these science experiments to visiting kids. And excellent, excited, we were expecting about 500 children to come to the science fair in a village near Bangalore. And to our horror, we were told to expect 5,000. Apparently, the word had spread, and everyone thought, hey, this sounds like a lot of fun. Let's go and see what's going to happen. So we didn't have enough teachers, and the teachers were not keen to be trained on a weekend to teach science and stuff like that. So what do? We huddled, no solution again. This time, no solution. And fortunately, a couple of young girls came up to us and said, you don't have teachers, right? Yeah, that's very true. Well, how about if you trained us to be your teachers? And by the way, we have 100 friends who'd be happy to come and be trained. And we thought that was a preposterous idea, but there was no option. There's 5,000 kids coming. So we trained them. And when the curtains went up, we kept our fingers crossed. And it was a huge, unprecedented success, because the visiting children saw not sort of gray-haired men like me with sullen expressions pretending they were going to do them a favor, but young kids, just like themselves with big smiles, dying to express themselves. And that sort of gave us a new idea that, hey, maybe this peer-to-peer teaching is the way to go. We should work, and we will work, and we are working through teachers, but there's a second line of defense, and that is training children to teach children. And that led to the birth of our Young Instructor Leader program, many of whom, like that village boy, for the last 7 years have been winning the Intel Science Award. Not the first prize, but certainly they've come in the top 20 or 30 all across India. Kids of carpenters and stonemasons and stuff like that, who could never ever dream of doing anything like that. So it's turned out to be a very powerful program. Now, the reason I mention or narrate these stories is to bring home the fact that hands-on learning is a way of life. It's a method of practice. It is about innovating and solving problems in the real heat of battle. It's not just about sitting in a classroom within four walls, right? So it's terribly important that it become part of the DNA of a person, because that's really a thing that can transform. transform the world. And you're dealing, at least in India, with a lot of complexity, multiple strata of society, people from all parts of the world, and all sorts of multiple agendas. So you sit back and dream of a magic bullet. How will I solve this problem? Is there a magic bullet? Alas, life is not that simple, right? It's not that just one little thing, a mobile lab or anything else, is going to solve the problems. But there is hope. And this famous sculptor Brancusi said, simplicity is complexity resolved, right? So I used to wonder, it sounds great, and I wish it would happen for me and for the Agastya Foundation. And I think it's happened. And I think the answer to all of this, sparking curiosity, confidence, humanity, we discovered, and my friend Tadashi is looking at me, so I've got to be careful what I say. He's one of the world authorities on the science of toys, okay? So Tadashi, please bear with me. Lies with a simple toy like this one. If you've seen it, it's called the tippy top. And you put it on a surface on your palm, and it sits on its bottom, because I assume that's where the center of gravity is, or whatever you call it. But spin it, and depending on how you spin it on the surface, if there's a little bit of friction, it tips over rather unexpectedly and spins on its stem. It's beautiful to watch. When you see something like that, unexpected, simple, counterintuitive, like you did earlier this evening, you go, ah, right? You see a spectacular painting. Anything, you go, ah. And the ah is very important, because in the ah, the mind is awakened and your curiosity is stimulated. So it's terribly important in any sort of interaction you have, not just educational interaction, that you awaken the ah. The second thing is you see it spinning and you wonder, now, why is that happening? And this is not trivial. I can't explain it. Or why couldn't it happen a different way? And there's actually a picture on the internet of Niels Bohr and Wolfgang Pauli in their suits watching this tippy top tip over. And you can see on their face the expression. They're wondering, they're enjoying the whole process and wondering, why does that happen? Trying to figure it out. In fact, a mathematician from Princeton last November came to see me in New York, and he was talking about a new company he was starting, and he asked me, what do you do? And rather than get all long-winded, I showed him this. And he loved it. And he said, can I take this home? And I said, sure. And then he sent me an email around 2 a.m. saying that he thinks he'd cracked the math of it. So I said, I take you at your word, because I really wouldn't be able to comment on it. But I sent him this picture of Pauli and Niels Bohr and said, you might like to see this picture. They were with this tippy top in 1951. And he sent me back an email saying, maybe it's not that simple. So I take back what I said. Let me get back to the drawing board. But the point is, if you do find out, it could be a false lead, you go through that process of exploration and discovery. If you do find out, you experience the famous aha effect, right? So there's ah and aha. Very, very important. And then, of course, the third thing is you have to have fun doing what you're doing, which is the ha-ha element, okay? And which we saw in spades earlier this evening. So what we said was, look, let's simplify all of this into three things. Our mantra, if you like, the secret sauce with 3 spices. Ah, aha, ha, ha. Now, if you can stimulate this in a classroom, one of the 3, 2 of the 3, or all 3 of them, then we're probably hitting bullseye. If that's not happening, then it doesn't matter how many mobile labs you have or how many teachers you have, you're probably wasting time. And it's actually quite profound. In fact, I realized that that's the way I want to live my life. And by the way, that's exactly, thanks to Ricardo for sending me here, that's exactly how I felt when I walked into RAFT. And how I felt when I walked into RAFT this evening. it had that sort of aha, maybe not the aha, because I haven't figured out the aha for this. When Granger showed me the, what do you call it?
Oh, the pop rocket.
The pop rocket. Fantastic stuff. You know, it takes you back to your childhood. The aha, ha, ha element. That's really critical. So, curiosity is really important, right? But curiosity alone doesn't guarantee action, and we're all involved in the field of action. Now, confidence alone can sometimes spill over into arrogance, and we know the disastrous consequences of that in various walks of life. But curiosity combined with confidence can lead to positive action. And when you bring humanity into it, curiosity, confidence, and humanity, you have what I call right action or creative action. So that's really what my experience has been through the Agastya Foundation. That's what we're really trying to do. And being here with RAFT, all I can say is I'm absolutely amazed at the number of things you guys do. I mean, it's literally out of the box. You see those huge boxes out there. So you're living and breathing out of the box thinking. And so just imagine then a world of millions of curious and creative kids and adults. And if Agastya and RAFT, I'd like to end on this note of another out-of-the-box idea, if we can collaborate. What Agastya is really good at is scaling up things. You know, we can take things to a very, very large audience, and that's not trivial. It requires a lot of management and thinking and execution and all the rest of it. And when you scale up huge, you tend to trade off in terms of content, right? So think of a missile, as a friend of mine used to say. You need a missile to take the content wherever you want to. But if you fill it with bricks, then, you know, not very effective. If you're sitting on a hydrogen bomb, but you can't take it anywhere, it could blow you to bits. So you need payload and delivery, content and delivery. In our case, a peaceful nuclear explosion of ideas and creativity. So if Agastya and RAFT can combine our skills, I'm convinced we can take it not just across all of India, possibly even in the US and to other countries around the world. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. And all the best, Granger, and wish all of you, and Sherry and Seema, and all of you that have worked so hard to create this really unique, spectacular event. Thank you. You know what this is? Okay. I must speak a little bit about it. Do you mind? Okay. Because RAFT took the trouble of making it for me. And Erin is here. Where's Erin? Can't see her. Erin from Synopsys. Hi, Erin. So a couple of years ago, and this again brings out the beauty of this sort of blended hands-on learning, Erin had come down to India, and we took her and her colleague Sharat to a village, one of the night village classes that we run in about 300 villages, where some of these kids who teach other children run these classes. So picture a night village in India, no lights, just this veranda lit up by a solar lamp, some paintings on the walls of animals and so on, animated children engaged with another young person. So I was sitting there talking to these kids. Erin was there, so was Sharat. The boy put up his hand and said, can you tell me what an anemometer is? And I was embarrassed. I'm not a science person. So I said, actually, I don't know. So my friend Sharat said, I know. Said it measures wind velocity or wind speed. And they engaged in a conversation. So I pulled out my Samsung phone. Perhaps I shouldn't use the word Samsung here. But it's a lot cheaper than the iPhone. And I didn't expect to get any connectivity in that village, but I just typed in anemometer, and sure enough, there was bandwidth, and there were a bunch of pictures of anemometers, and it even talked about who invented it. So as luck would have it, the boy put his hand up again and asked, can you tell me who invented the anemometer? So my friend Sharath went blank. And I said, hey, I know. And this boy was very confused. Was I playing a game? So I said, well, it was somebody in 1450, but it was substantially improved in the 1850s by a guy called James Robinson. So this boy was really thrilled. And I asked him, now, is this how it looks? And I showed him some pictures on the phone. And he said, yeah, that's exactly how it looks. I saw a picture in my textbook, but my teacher couldn't explain it. And then I happened to see a little bag that our person carries. It's called a lab in a bag. And I spotted some old paper cups and pieces of straw. And I thought, maybe you could make an anemometer out of it. And so they made one. And RAFT, not to be outdone, said we'd make an even better one, which they did. So this is the story of the anemometer. My breath is not powerful enough to make it spin, but think about it. So it brought together the beauty of blended hands-on learning and discussion and just that human interface. Thanks very much.
On in quiet desperation is the English way. The time is gone, the song is over. Thought I'd something more to say.
Let's thank Ramji again. What an inspiration. What an amazing person. Halfway around the world to join us tonight. And he brought the rain with him. So that's another fantastic event, right? We need that rain here in California. We're now at the Fund a Mission part of the event. This is going to be fun. I guarantee you that. It's going to be fun. But first, let me introduce myself. My name's Kip Landman. I was working 34 years for Intel as an executive at Intel. 2 years ago, I walked away from that so that I could volunteer full-time at RAFT. No. It's not about me, it's about the kids. That's how strongly I believe that hands-on learning, as Ramji said, can have a transformative effect on children. It had that on me, and I know it has it on other children as well. Let me share you one quick story about my experience with another child and how it had that effect. A few years ago, I was blessed with the opportunity to spend one day in a classroom of first graders. It was not far from here, a few miles from here, an underserved classroom. I was there to teach about financial concepts. How in the world do you teach financial concepts to a first grader, right? But it was very basic, what is money, etc. I brought with me some hands-on activities in order to reinforce the lessons, because I knew that that's how I learned, and I was just hoping it would have that effect on the children in the classroom. So I went in, started to teach this class, and most of the kids were really engaged, having fun with, before we even got going with the lessons. But there was one girl, beautiful girl. She was the smallest kid in the class, and she had these huge eyes. And I tried to engage with her as I was teaching the lesson, and she sat there quietly, wouldn't even answer one of my questions. During a break, I went to the teacher who was sitting in the back of the room, and I asked, who is that? And he said, her name is Anna. She's a slow learner, and she never interacts with other kids in the class. That hurt me inside tremendously, because all kids have the ability to learn and to interact. I used those hands-on activities that I brought in order to engage her And throughout the day, miraculously, she got engaged. She started to talk to the other kids during these hands-on activities. By the end of the day, she was actually leading her table of kids in that hands-on activities. This girl who had never spoken really to the other kids that had been sitting next to her. And she knew that material better than anyone else in that room by the end of the day. I talked to the teacher after the class, and he said, "That is remarkable." And I said, "What is?" And he said, "Anna, I've never seen her interact with the other kids like that. How did you do it?" And I said, "It must have been the hands-on activities." As I was walking out of the door to leave, there was a tug on my pants. And I looked down, and there was Anna. And what she said to me, I'll never forget. In her quiet voice, she said, "That's the most fun I've ever had. Can you come back tomorrow?" Man, I'll never forget that. That is the transformative effect that hands-on learning that RAFT provides to kids has on our future generation. We teach them about teamwork. We teach them about interacting, problem solving, all the skills that we need in our workforce going forward. Those are the kids we need. So we're now going to go to the fund to mission part, but I want you to think about the impact these kids will have going forward on our future workforce, but also think about the Annas of the world and how we're going to be engaging them through your generosity right now going forward. We have the ability to reach millions of kids starting tonight. So with that, we're at the Fund a Mission, and how it's going to work is everybody has a number at their table. So grab your number. I'm going to call out some various contribution levels, meaningful contribution levels. If you think you can support that level, raise up your card. I'll call out your number, and then after I call it out, we'll know that it's been captured. On the back, simply fill out your information. And Ramji mentioned a pop rocket. Everybody that donates tonight, regardless of the level, gets one of these limited edition pop rockets. So we will ensure everyone that donates gets one of these. Not only can you teach your kids about the physics of it, more importantly, you can shoot it at the cubicle next to you and nail them in the head when they're not ready for it. So with that, let's get started. First up,
I'll be helping you spot.
okay, I have a spotter. Jose, yay! Okay, so with that, let's start at $10,000 and above. It's a lot of money, but remember the mission that we are on here. For $10,000 and above, it's going to provide in-depth training, as an example of what it can do. We'll provide the in-depth training for 7 teachers, as well as all of the material that they need in their classroom to support that. That's what 10,000 and above can provide.
83.
We already, a round of applause. We have a donor for $10,000. Outstanding. Is there anyone else at 10,000 or above?
156.
156, another, yeah! Woo! That is amazing, thank you. Anybody else at $10,000 level that can support us? Is there anyone else? Well, thank you both, that's amazing. Our next level is $7,500. As an example of what that can do, we have a STEM Summer Institute that will provide for 15 educators to go to that institute and take these hands-on lessons back. Is there anyone that can support us at the $7,500 level? Anyone? Going once, going twice. Okay, how about at the $5,000 level? For $5,000, it's going to provide professional development.
138.
We already have 254, 138.
67.
67. Anybody else at the 5,000? I can't read the...
142.
142.
186.
Outstanding. And remember, you get one of these for your donation. Is there anyone else at the $5,000 level? Okay, at the $2,500 level, that's enough to engage hands-on learning experiences for 1,200 students. 127.
34.
23. 144. 34. Outstanding. That is a round of applause. I tell you, that is incredible. Anybody else at 2,500? Is there someone? No, that's a table number. Okay.
Where?
There's another one.
225.
225. Outstanding. Woo! Fantastic. Anyone else at 2,500? Okay. At the $1,000 level, that's enough to fund this mission and provide for a development of a teacher lead.
155.
Whoa! Oh,
12.
13.
13.
12.
16.
16.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. 76.
116. 109.
230. Enough for 50 students to experience one of our hands-on kits over there. 77. 19.
79, 188, 187, 244, 245, 184, 136.
27.
37,
212.
36, 39, and 42. 159, 198.
Oh my goodness, look at this room.
199, 249, 136, 87, 82, 130, 59, and 60. 28.
Here's one right here.
159, 87, 133.
Unbelievable.
159. Thank you.
Anyone else at the $100 level? 87, did we get that? Yeah. Thank you very much. So, if there is anyone else that would like to donate, feel free for any amount. You will get one of these limited edition ones. And that is the wrap-up of our experience tonight. Thank you all. Oh, one more thing. Dave, where are you? What is our total so far? There he is. Our finance guy is over here. His calculator is smoking, I can tell. $80,000 was raised tonight. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I hope you guys had a great experience tonight. Did you want to say anything else, Jose?
I will finish up the evening.
Okay.
Thank you. Wow. What a night, huh? Before we go, there's one more thing I would like to try with you, something that I do with my students. We just made a difference. You funded a mission. And whenever we do something great, whenever we do something above and beyond, because we don't praise what's being met, because that's an expectation. We praise going above and beyond. And we've done that. So what I do is I go 1, 2, 3. You go boom, chaka-laka-laka, boom. We do that. Middle school loves it. Let's try it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Boom, chaka-laka-laka, boom. Yes. What a fantastic evening we've had. Did you try the dessert? It was really good. It has been a sincere pleasure thinking out of the box with you. As a thank you, RAFT will provide you with 2 one-day passes for RAFT. One for you, and one that you can give to someone in the education sector. An after-school program, a school, a teacher, an education nonprofit, whatever you choose. Spread the word about RAFT. Thank you for coming and supporting teachers, students, and education. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. Thank you.